I was standing in line at my favourite coffee shop, about to order my usual latte, before a crucial investor meeting, when the card reader beeped. The barista's expression shifted from friendly to awkward in an instant. It says your card was declined. Do you have another one? My face went hot. Declined. That was impossible. I had over 6 figures in that account. Behind me, someone sighed impatiently. I fumbled for my wallet and handed over a different card, forcing a smile. Sorry, that's weird. Try this one. The machine beeped again. Declined. My stomach dropped. I pulled out a third card with trembling fingers. The barista swiped it slowly, her sympathy making everything worse. Another beep. Declined. I'm so sorry, I muttered, backing away from the counter as the entire line stared at me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone as I stepped outside and dialed my bank. Ms. Parker, I'm going to need you to come into the branch immediately. The customer service representative said, her voice dropping to an uncomfortable whisper. There's been a situation with your account that requires in-person verification. What kind of situation? I have a meeting in an hour. I really can't discuss this over the phone. Please come in as soon as possible. It's regarding your legal status. My legal status? What the hell did that even mean? But before we get to how I ended up declared legally dead by my own mother and sister, before we get to the GoFundMe page they created to profit off my supposed funeral, let me ask you this. Have you ever loved someone so much that you ignored every red flag waving in your face? If this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt used by the people who were supposed to love you most, please hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me if you've ever had to cut off toxic family. Your support means everything, and trust me, you'll want to stick around for how this ends. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare really began. 3 months earlier, I was sitting in a glass conference room on the 40th floor of downtown Chicago, surrounded by my team as we prepared to launch the biggest product of my career. At 32, I had worked my way up from an entry-level marketing coordinator to director of innovation at Tech Vanguard, one of the fastest-growing software companies in the Midwest. I had sacrificed everything for this position. Weekends, holidays, relationships, sleep. My entire 20s had been consumed by the relentless pursuit of success, driven by a desperate need to prove that I was worth something. You see, I grew up as the unfavourite daughter. My mother Donna never let me forget that I was the difficult one, the one who asked too many questions, who didn't smile enough, who was too focused on books instead of boys. My sister Amber, 3 years younger, was the golden child, pretty charming, effortlessly social. While I studied for my SATs, Amber perfected her Instagram aesthetic. While I worked 2 jobs to put myself through state college, Amber bounced from one beauty school to another, funded entirely by our mother's credit cards, which I later learned were maxed out. Even then I helped. I always helped. When Amber needed money for her certification exams, after failing them twice, I sent $500. When Mum's car broke down, I covered the $2,000 repair. When Amber wanted to move into a nicer apartment, I co-signed her lease, then ended up covering 3 months of rent when she forgot to pay because she was dealing with a lot emotionally. I told myself it was what family did. I told myself that maybe if I proved I was useful, I would finally earn the love that seemed to flow so freely to Amber. My phone buzzed insistently during that product launch meeting. I glanced down to see 15 text messages from Amber and 7 missed calls from Mum. My stomach clenched with that familiar dread, the Pavlovian response to their constant demands. But I silenced my phone and focused on my presentation. For once, I was putting myself first. The launch was a massive success. My boss, Jennifer, pulled me aside afterward, her eyes bright with excitement. Clara, the board is talking about a VP position. You're on the shortlist. This could change everything for you. For the first time in years, I felt genuine hope. A VP salary would mean I could finally buy my own place, maybe even take a real vacation. I had been saving aggressively, living in a modest 1-bedroom apartment, driving a 10-year-old Honda, eating meal-prepped lunches. I had nearly $100,000 in my savings account, carefully accumulated over 8 years. It was my security, my future, my ticket to independence. I should have known they would try to take it. That evening I drove to my mother's house in the suburbs. She still lived in the same cramped ranch-style home where I'd grown up, though I'd been paying her mortgage for the last 2 years after she claimed she couldn't afford it on her administrative assistant salary. Never mind that she somehow found money for Amber's expensive highlights and her own weekly manicures. I walked in to find them waiting for me in the living room, sitting close together on the worn floral couch like a united front. Mum's face was set in that martyred expression I knew so well. Amber was practically vibrating with excitement, and that's when I noticed it, a massive diamond ring on her left hand, catching the light from the overhead fixture. "You're engaged," I said, forcing a smile. "Congratulations." "Trevor proposed last weekend," Amber gushed, jumping up to show me the ring. It had to be at least 2 carats surrounded by a halo of smaller diamonds. "We're getting married next June at the Lakeside Estate. It's going to be absolutely perfect." The Lakeside Estate. I'd looked at that venue once for a colleague's wedding. The starting price was $75,000. "That sounds beautiful," I said, carefully, already sensing where this was going. "Have you guys set a budget?" Mum stood up, her arms crossed. "That's actually why we needed to talk to you, Clara. This is a family matter, and family takes care of family." "Trevor's parents are very wealthy." Amber jumped in her voice, taking on a whiny edge. "His mum basically runs Chicago society. If we don't do this wedding right, if it looks cheap or tacky, his family won't respect us. They'll think Trevor is marrying beneath him." "Okay," I said slowly. "So what's Trevor contributing?" "His parents are paying for the honeymoon," Amber said quickly. "A month in Europe. But the wedding itself, that's traditionally the bride's family's responsibility." My stomach twisted into a knot. I already knew this was going to be bad. "Okay," I said slowly. "How much are we talking about?" $100,000, Mom said flatly, as if she were asking me to pick up milk at the store. "We need you to give us your savings." The room started to spin. "You want me to give you $100,000, my entire life savings, for a wedding? It's not just a wedding." Amber snapped, her pretty face twisting into something ugly. "It's my future. It's the most important day of my life. You're just sitting on that money anyway. What are you even saving it for? You don't have a boyfriend, you don't have a life. All you have is your stupid job." "Amber has a chance at real happiness," Mom added, her voice sharp. "She has a chance to marry into a good family, to have the life she deserves. You've always been selfish, Clara. Always focused on yourself. This family has sacrificed so much for you." I actually laughed. It came out bitter and harsh. "Sacrificed for me? I've been financially supporting both of you for years. I paid for your car repairs, Mum. I'm paying your mortgage right now. Amber, I covered your rent, your certification courses, that designer bag you just had to have for your birthday." "And that's what family does," Mum shot back. "We help each other. I raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years. You owe me. That was your job as a parent. That's not a debt I have to repay for the rest of my life." Amber's eyes filled with tears, the same manipulation tactic she'd used since childhood. "So you're just going to let me be humiliated? You're going to let Trevor's family think we're poor trash? God, Clara, I always knew you hated me." "I don't hate you, but I'm not giving you my savings. That money is for my future. I'm buying a house with it. The answer is no." The transformation in my mother's face was terrifying. All pretense of maternal concern evaporated, replaced by pure rage. She grabbed the teacup sitting on the coffee table and hurled it at the wall behind me. It shattered, missing my head by inches, ceramic shards raining down onto my shoulder. "You selfish bitch!" she screamed. "After everything I've done for you. You're going to regret this, Clara. You're going to regret turning your back on this family." I left that night with my mother's threats ringing in my ears, and Amber's sobs of rage following me out the door. I should have known then that they wouldn't let it go. I should have protected myself. But I didn't. I went back to my life, trying to focus on work, trying to ignore the increasingly hostile texts from Amber and the silent treatment from Mum. I told myself I had done the right thing. I had set a boundary. I was finally putting myself first. That delusion lasted exactly 11 days. Standing in the bank manager's office 3 days after my cards were declined, I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. Mr. Peterson, a silver-haired man in his 50s, who had helped me set up my savings account years ago, looked genuinely distressed as he slid a document across his desk. "Miss Parker, I need you to understand that we followed protocol. When your mother and sister came in with this documentation, we had no reason to doubt its authenticity. I picked up the paper with trembling hands. It was a death certificate. My death certificate. It listed Clara Marie Parker, my full name, my correct date of birth, and stated that I had died 12 days ago from acute trauma sustained in vehicular accident. It had an official-looking seal, a case number, and what appeared to be a medical examiner's signature. "This is fake," I whispered. "I'm sitting right here, I'm alive." "Yes, and we're very relieved about that," Mr. Peterson said carefully. "But you need to understand the situation from our perspective. Your mother came in sobbing, absolutely devastated. Your sister could barely speak. They had this certificate, they had your ID, which they claimed they'd gotten from the police, along with your personal effects. They requested to access your account to cover funeral expenses. And you believed them, you didn't try to contact me. The phone number we had on file was disconnected. They told us your phone had been destroyed in the accident." My mind was reeling. "They tried to steal my money." "We stopped them," Mr. Peterson said quickly. "We have mandatory holds on any accounts where the deceased status is reported for exactly this reason. We need verification from multiple sources. But, Ms. Parker, this is serious. This is fraud, identity theft, forgery of government documents. These are federal crimes." I sat there in shock, trying to process what my own mother and sister had attempted to do. They hadn't just asked for my money, they had tried to erase me. They had declared me dead to the world to rob me of everything I had worked for. "I need to make a phone call," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I called Mark Chen, my best friend from college, who was now a criminal defence attorney. We'd stayed close over the years, meeting for coffee once a month, texting about random Netflix shows and work drama. He was the only person in my life who understood my family dynamics, who had told me years ago that they were toxic and I needed to get away from them. "Mark, I need you to come to First National Bank right now. My mother just tried to steal my savings by declaring me dead." 30 minutes later, Mark was sitting beside me, his expression growing darker as Mr. Peterson explained the situation and showed him copies of the forged documents. Mark photographed everything, asked pointed questions about the bank's security footage from the day my mother and sister visited, and requested written statements. "Clara," Mark said, finally turning to me, "this isn't a family dispute anymore. This is criminal. I'm talking fraud, identity theft, forgery of government documents. They could go to prison for this." "Good," I heard myself say. The word surprised me with its coldness, but I meant it. I was done being the bigger person. I was done making excuses for them. But prison is too easy. I want them to lose everything first. I want them to feel what they tried to do to me. Mark raised an eyebrow. "What are you thinking?" "They wanted me dead right. They wanted to cash in on my death. So let's let them think they're getting away with it. Let them get comfortable, and then I come back from the dead and destroy them." Mark leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You want to catch them in the act of celebrating. Document everything they do with this lie." "Exactly." Over the next hour we formulated a plan. Mark would work with the bank to keep my accounts frozen, making it look like the bank was still investigating. I would stay silent, not contacting my mother or sister at all. Mark had a private investigator friend who would monitor their social media and any online activity. We would gather evidence, let them dig themselves deeper, and then strike. "There's one more thing," Mr. Peterson said hesitantly. "You should check social media. Your sister has been quite active." My hands shook as I opened Instagram on my phone. Amber's profile loaded, and what I saw made me physically ill. Her latest post from 2 days ago was a video tribute to me. It opened with a photo of us as children, me awkwardly smiling with my glasses and braces, Amber adorable with her curly pigtails. Sad piano music played, as the images changed each one carefully, selected to make me look as unflattering as possible. Me, at my college graduation, exhausted and puffy from finals. Me at a family Christmas caught mid-blink with my mouth open. Me at Amber's high school graduation standing awkwardly to the side. The text overlay read, "My beautiful sister Clara was taken from us too soon. She lived for her work and never got to experience the joy of true love or family of her own. Heaven gained an angel. Rest in peace, sis. You'll never be forgotten." The comments were full of sympathetic emojis and condolences. But it was the bio link that made me want to vomit. Help the Parker family through this tragedy GoFundMe. I clicked it with numb fingers. The GoFundMe page had a similar photo collage, but with more details. Amber had written a lengthy description of my supposed death, painting herself as the devoted younger sister who was now left to care for our grief-stricken elderly mother while planning her own wedding. She wrote about how I'd always been the responsible one, how I'd sacrificed my own happiness to help them, and how she wanted to honour my memory by having a beautiful wedding that I would have been proud of. The fundraiser goal was $25,000. They had already raised $18,500 from strangers who believed my grieving family needed help. They're monetising my death, I said out loud, my voice hollow. They're making money off claiming I'm dead. Mark's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. Screenshot everything, every post, every comment, every dollar raised. This is premeditated fraud. I kept scrolling through the comments, seeing how Amber had responded to each one with tearful gratitude, promising to use the money to honour Clara's memory and give her the send-off she deserved. People offered to donate more, shared the link, told Amber what a strong and beautiful person she was for staying positive during such tragedy. And then I saw Trevor's comment. So proud of you, baby. Your sister is in a better place now watching over us. We'll make her proud with our love story. He knew. Trevor, with his family money and society connections, was in on this. He had to be. No one could be that oblivious. I need air, I said, standing up abruptly. Mark followed me out of the bank into the harsh afternoon sunlight. I leaned against the building, trying to breathe, trying not to scream. What kind of people do this? I asked. What kind of mother tries to erase her own daughter? The kind that never saw you as a person, Mark said quietly, only as a resource to be exploited. Clara, I know this hurts, but you're going to come out of this stronger, and they're going to face consequences for the first time in their miserable lives. Over the next 2 weeks, Mark's private investigator friend, a woman named Sarah, who had 15 years of experience in surveillance and fraud investigation, compiled a damning portfolio of evidence. She tracked every social media post, every comment, every share. She documented Amber's shopping sprees, charging thousands of dollars to her credit cards for wedding decorations and deposits. She captured screenshots of text conversations between Amber and her friends, where Amber bragged about the money coming in, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate bleeding heart strangers. But the most valuable evidence came from my Aunt Carol, my mother's younger sister, and the only decent person on that side of the family. Carol had always been kind to me, sneaking me birthday money when I was a kid, praising my academic achievements when Mum dismissed them. I had kept in touch with her over the years, though I rarely saw her at family gatherings since she'd moved to Arizona. I called her 2 days after the bank incident, my voice breaking as I explained what had happened. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long I thought we'd been disconnected. "Carol, are you there?" "I'm here, sweetie." Her voice was thick with tears. "I'm just trying to process what kind of monster my sister has become. Clara, I'm so sorry. I knew Donna was bitter and manipulative, but this is beyond anything I imagined." "I need your help," I said. "I need evidence. I need to prove this wasn't just some misguided attempt to get money. I need to show premeditation." "What do you need me to do?" "Call Mum. Tell her you heard about my death and you're coming to visit. See what she says, if you can record the conversation." Carol flew into Chicago 3 days later. She didn't tell Mum she was recording when she visited the house, her phone carefully positioned in her purse. What she captured was chilling. Mark played the audio for me in his office, and I sat frozen as I listened to my mother's voice, clear and casual, utterly void of grief. "Honestly, Carol, it's been such a relief," Mum said. "Clara was always so difficult, so judgmental, and this way we get what we need without her constant lectures about responsibility." "But Donna, what about the death certificate? How did you even get that?" Carol's voice was carefully neutral, coaxing. "Oh, we paid someone, $5,000 to a guy Amber found online who specialises in documents. He did a great job, didn't he? The bank totally bought it." "And what happens when people realise Clara isn't actually dead?" Mum laughed. It was a sound I'd heard 1,000 times, that dismissive cackle that said she knew better than everyone else. "By then we'll have the money spent. What are they going to do, arrest us? We'll say it was a misunderstanding, that we were confused in our grief. Amber is already working on her sob story. She's very good at crying on command. And the GoFundMe, that's fraud Donna." That's charity. People gave that money willingly. It's not our fault they believed a story. Besides, we deserve it after all these years of putting up with Clara's attitude. Think of it as back payment for raising her. I had to leave the room. I made it to Mark's bathroom before I threw up heaving until there was nothing left my body purging the poison of realising how much my mother hated me. Not just disliked or was disappointed in. Hated. Actively, deliberately hated me enough to erase my existence. When I came back, Mark had paused the recording. His expression was a mixture of fury and pity. "That's enough evidence to press charges," he said. "We have everything we need. Premeditation, conspiracy, fraud. The DA would take this case in a heartbeat." "No," I said, my voice hoarse. "Not yet. I want them to have their moment. I want them to think they've won. Clara, the longer we wait, the more money they're stealing from people through that GoFundMe. Then we report the GoFundMe anonymously, get it shut down. But I don't want them arrested yet. They're having an engagement party next week. That's where I want to do this." Mark looked sceptical. "You want a public confrontation?" "I want them humiliated the way they tried to humiliate me. I want everyone who matters to them to see exactly who they are. Trevor's family, their friends, our relatives. I want it documented, and then we press charges." Mark studied me for a long moment. "You've changed." "They killed me," I said simply. "The Clara who would have forgiven them, who would have tried to understand their perspective, who would have made excuses, she's dead. They made sure of that. What's left is someone who refuses to be a victim anymore." The week before the engagement party was surreal. I went to work as usual, attended meetings, smiled at colleagues who had no idea my family had declared me dead. I had to deflect questions about why I seemed distracted inventing a story about a complicated project deadline. Jennifer noticed my tension and offered me time off, which I declined. I needed the normalcy of work to keep me sane. At night, I planned with Mark and Sarah. We choreographed every detail of the confrontation. Sarah would be at the party as a guest, her hidden camera recording everything. Mark would arrive with me, ready to provide legal intervention if things got violent. Carol would be there too, ready to support me and serve as a witness to my mother's earlier confession. I bought a new dress for the occasion, a sleek black sheath that made me look powerful and very much alive. I got my hair cut and highlighted. I had my makeup professionally done. If I was going to rise from the dead, I was going to look stunning doing it. The night of the party, I sat in my car outside the lakeside estate for 10 minutes, watching well-dressed guests arrive, seeing the glow of lights from inside the elegant venue. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Mark sat in the passenger seat, waiting patiently. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "We can still just press charges. Let the legal system handle it." "I need them to see me," I said. "I need them to know that I know, and I need everyone else to know what they tried to do." "Then let's go." We walked up the stone pathway to the entrance. Through the tall windows I could see the party in full swing. Amber, in a flowing white cocktail dress, was holding court in the centre of the room, showing off her ring to a cluster of admirers. My mother stood beside her, elegant in navy blue, playing the role of proud mother perfectly. Trevor was near the bar, laughing with his father, a distinguished man in an expensive suit. The venue was decorated beautifully, with white roses and gold accents, soft lighting making everything glow. A string quartet played in the corner. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. It was exactly the kind of tasteful, expensive event that Amber had always dreamed of. I pushed open the door. The first person to notice me was Carol, who was standing near the entrance. Her eyes widened, and she gave me a barely perceptible nod. Sarah was across the room, her camera concealed in her designer clutch, already recording. I walked through the crowd, feeling heads turn. Conversations stuttered and died as people recognised me. Someone gasped. A champagne glass shattered on the floor. Amber was mid-sentence, telling some story to Trevor's mother when she noticed the room had gone silent. She turned, following everyone's gaze, and her eyes locked on mine. The blood drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Hi, Amber," I said, my voice carrying in the sudden silence. "Sorry I'm late to your party. I would have been here sooner, but I was busy being dead." My mother spun around, her champagne flute slipping from her fingers. It hit the marble floor with a crash that seemed deafening in the quiet room. "Clara," she breathed, and for the first time in my life I saw genuine fear in her eyes. "Surprise," I said with a cold smile. Turns out reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. Or should I say completely fabricated? Trevor stepped forward, his confusion evident. "What the hell is going on, Amber? You said your sister died in a car accident." "I did," I confirmed, turning to address him directly. According to the death certificate my mother and sister presented to my bank while trying to steal my entire life savings. According to the GoFundMe page Amber created to scam $18,000 from strangers. According to the touching tribute video she posted on Instagram. I had a very eventful death, apparently. Mark moved to stand beside me, his lawyer persona fully activated. He pulled out his tablet and connected it to the venue's projection system before anyone could stop him. The staff member controlling the AV system looked confused, but didn't interfere when Mark showed him his business card and said this was official legal business. The lights dimmed slightly and the large screen behind the head table lit up. Mark had prepared a presentation that was worthy of a courtroom, and now it played for everyone at the party to see. First the death certificate with my name and the fake details displayed in stark black and white. Then screenshots of Amber's social media posts, the mournful tributes with their carefully chosen unflattering photos of me. The GoFundMe page with its running tally of donations and Amber's manipulative description of needing money to honour her dead sister while planning her wedding. Bank records showing my mother and Amber's attempt to access my frozen accounts. And finally, the audio recording from Aunt Carol's visit. My mother's voice filled the room, clear and damning. "Clara was always so difficult, so judgmental. And this way we get what we need without her constant lectures about responsibility. We paid someone, $5,000 to a guy Amber found online who specialises in documents. By then, we'll have the money spent. What are they going to do, arrest us?" "They'd be done." The room erupted. Trevor's mother let out a horrified gasp. His father's face turned purple with rage. Guests pulled out their phones, some recording, some frantically texting. The elegant party dissolved into chaos. I walked up to the head table, my heels clicking on the marble floor, and took the microphone the DJ had been using to make announcements. "I want everyone here to understand what happened." I said, my voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I spent my entire adult life supporting my mother and sister financially. I paid their bills, covered their expenses, co-signed their leases. And when I finally said no to funding a $100,000 wedding, they didn't just cut me off. They tried to erase me. They declared me dead and attempted to steal everything I had worked for. I turned to look directly at Amber, who had sunk into a chair, her face buried in her hands. "You said I didn't have a life, that all I had was my job. But at least I had honesty. At least I had integrity. What do you have now, Amber? A fiancé who just learnt you're a criminal, a reputation as a scammer, a future filled with legal consequences." Trevor was staring at Amber with undisguised disgust. His father had already pulled him aside, whispering urgently. I could read the body language clearly. The engagement was over. My mother tried to rally, stepping forward with her hands raised. "This is a misunderstanding. We were confused, grieving." "You weren't grieving," I cut her off. "You were celebrating. You thought you'd finally found a way to bleed me dry without me fighting back. But here's what you didn't count on. I'm done being your victim. I'm done sacrificing myself for people who see me as nothing more than an ATM machine." Aunt Carol stood up from where she'd been sitting. "Donna, you're not my sister anymore, not after this. You tried to destroy your own daughter's life for money, for a wedding. What kind of mother does that?" She turned to address the room. "Everyone here needs to know that I recorded Donna admitting to forgery, fraud and conspiracy. The authorities have copies. This isn't just family drama, these are federal crimes." Trevor's father stepped forward, his voice cold and authoritative. "Trevor, we're leaving, and you need to understand that this engagement is terminated immediately. The Campbell family will not be associated with criminals. Get your things." Trevor looked at Amber one last time, and I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. His expression held nothing but contempt. "I can't believe I thought I loved you," he said quietly. Then he walked out with his family, leaving Amber sobbing at the table. Guests began to leave in a rush, the scandal too juicy to not immediately share with everyone they knew. Within an hour, this story would be all over Chicago society social media. My mother and sister would be pariahs. I stood there and watched the room empty, feeling a strange calm settle over me. Mark touched my elbow gently. The police will want statements. We have enough evidence for multiple charges. Are you ready to go through with this? Yes, I said without hesitation. Press every charge you can. Fraud, identity theft, forgery, conspiracy theft, all of it. My mother tried to approach me one last time as we were leaving. Clara, please. You're my daughter. We can work this out as a family. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. Not anger, not pain, not even pity. Just emptiness where my love for her used to be. I don't have a mother anymore, I said clearly. You killed your daughter when you signed that fake death certificate. Good luck with the legal fees. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. True to his word, Mark filed charges for every crime they'd committed. The evidence was overwhelming. The forged death certificate, the bank fraud attempt, the online solicitation of money under false pretenses. Even the guy they'd paid to create the fake documents was tracked down and arrested. Amber and my mother tried to fight the charges at first, hiring a lawyer with money they didn't have, going further into debt. But eventually, faced with the mountain of evidence and the possibility of serious prison time, they took a plea deal. 5 years probation, each mandatory restitution of every dollar they'd raised, plus damages to me and permanent criminal records. They would never pass a background check again. Amber's dreams of marrying into high society were dead. Mom's reputation in her church and social circles was destroyed. The GoFundMe company, after being provided with the evidence, not only shut down the fraudulent campaign, but also helped track down and refund every single donor. That part felt good, knowing those kind strangers got their money back. But the legal consequences were only part of their punishment. The social consequences were far more devastating for people like them, people who lived for appearances and status. The story went viral. Local news picked it up first, then national outlets. Woman declared dead by family and inheritance scam was a headline that was too good for media to resist. Amber's Instagram and Facebook were flooded with comments from outraged people. She had to delete all her social media accounts. Job applications went unanswered. No one wanted to hire someone with her face plastered across the internet as a fraud. Trevor married someone else within a year, a woman from an equally prominent family. I saw the announcement in the society pages and felt nothing but relief that he'd escaped Amber's manipulation. My mother lost her job after her employer decided they couldn't have someone with a criminal record working in their office. She had to sell the house I'd been paying the mortgage on to cover her legal fees. Last I heard, she was living in a studio apartment on the outskirts of the city, estranged from most of the family. But while their lives collapsed, mine began to expand in ways I'd never imagined. With my savings intact and no longer being drained by their constant demands, I started actually planning my future. I bought a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in a high-rise downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Every morning, I woke up to the sunrise over the water and I felt free. The VP position Jennifer had mentioned came through 6 months after the engagement party fiasco. My salary doubled, but more than that, I felt valued. My work was recognised. My ideas were implemented. I was thriving in a way I never had before because I wasn't constantly exhausted from managing my family's crises and demands. My relationship with Mark evolved naturally. We'd always had chemistry, but I'd been too tangled up in family obligation and work stress to see it clearly. After everything that happened after he stood by me through the worst experience of my life, I finally let myself acknowledge what I'd been feeling for years. Our first kiss happened on my new condo's balcony at sunset, and it felt like coming home. Aunt Carol became the family I needed. We talked weekly, visited each other often. She filled the maternal role my mother had never truly occupied. She told me she was proud of me, that I was brave, that I deserved happiness. Simple words that I'd never heard from my mother. I started therapy to process the trauma of growing up as the scapegoat child of being used and manipulated and ultimately discarded. Dr. Williams helped me understand that my mother's inability to love me had nothing to do with my worth as a person. It was her own brokenness, her own dysfunction. I wasn't unlovable. I had just been trying to earn love from someone incapable of giving it. Learning to set boundaries became my new superpower. I practiced saying no without guilt. I stopped over-explaining my decisions. I cut off people who took more than they gave. It was terrifying at first, like learning to walk after years of crawling. But with each boundary I maintained, I felt stronger. A year after the engagement party confrontation, I got an unexpected message. It was from Amber, sent from a new phone number I didn't recognise. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won. "I know you'll probably delete this," it began. "But I need to say I'm sorry, not because I want anything from you. I don't expect forgiveness, I just need you to know that I realise now how messed up what we did was. Mum convinced me you owed us, that you were selfish for having money when we didn't. I believed her because it was easier than admitting we were both failures who couldn't take care of ourselves. You deserved better. You always deserved better. I hope you're happy now. You earned it." I read it 3 times, searching for the manipulation, the angle, the request for money or help that had to be coming. But it never came. It was just an apology, simple and seemingly sincere. I didn't respond, not because I was being cruel, but because I had nothing to say. I couldn't forgive them, not yet, and maybe not ever. Some violations are too fundamental. But I could acknowledge that Amber was finally taking responsibility, even if it was too late to repair what she'd broken. I showed the message to Dr. Williams during our next session. "How does it make you feel?" she asked. "Nothing," I said honestly. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt. I just feel indifferent. Is that wrong?" Indifference isn't wrong. It's actually a sign of healing. You've processed the trauma enough that they no longer have power over your emotions. That's growth. She was right. I had spent so many years desperate for their approval, then months consumed by rage at their betrayal. Now I simply didn't care. They were strangers who happened to share my DNA, nothing more. 2 years after everything happened, Jennifer called me into her office with news that would change my trajectory again. "Clara, we're opening a new division focused on AI integration and ethical tech development. The board wants you to head it as Senior Vice President. It's a significant promotion, bigger budget, your own team. But there's a catch. It requires relocation to our San Francisco office. California, 3,000 miles from Chicago, from the ghosts of my old life, from the possibility of running into my mother at the grocery store or seeing Amber's face in a crowd." "When would I start?" I asked. 3 months. Gives you time to close out your current projects and relocate." I accepted immediately. Mark was supportive when I told him that evening over dinner at our favourite Italian restaurant. "San Francisco is incredible," he said, "and my firm has been wanting me to help establish a West Coast presence. I could request a transfer." "You'd do that?" I asked, surprised. "You'd leave Chicago for me?" "Clara, I'd follow you anywhere. But also, this is a good career move for me too. It's not a sacrifice. It's an opportunity for both of us to start fresh together." We moved to California that summer. I found an apartment in Pacific Heights with a view of the Golden Gate Bridge. Mark landed a position at a prestigious firm specialising in tech law. We adopted a rescue dog named Justice, which Mark insisted was ironic and perfect. My new role was challenging in the best way. I led a team of 15 brilliant people working on ensuring AI development was ethical, transparent and beneficial. We consulted with other tech companies, published research papers, spoke at conferences. I was making a real difference in an industry I loved. I made new friends who didn't know my history, who saw me as just Clara, confident and successful. I joined a book club, took up rock climbing, learned to surf badly but enthusiastically. I dated Mark openly and seriously, and when he proposed on a beach at sunset 2 years after we moved, I said yes, without hesitation. We got married in a small ceremony at a winery in Napa Valley, with only Aunt Carol, a few close friends, and Mark's family in attendance. It was intimate, joyful, and exactly what I wanted. No drama, no obligation, no people who saw me as a resource to exploit. Just love. On my wedding day, as I was getting ready, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was from my mother. "I saw your engagement announcement online. Congratulations. I know I have no right to ask, but I would like to be part of your life again. I'm in therapy now. I understand what I did was unforgivable. But you're still my daughter. Please." I stared at the message for a long moment. 3 years ago, even 1 year ago, this would have sent me into an emotional spiral. I would have agonized over whether I owed her a response, whether I was being too harsh, whether family meant I had to forgive. Now I simply screenshotted the message and sent it to Mark with a caption, "Look who's crawling back." His response was immediate. "Want me to block the number?" "No," I typed back. "I'll handle it." I crafted my response carefully, every word deliberate. "I received your message. I want to be clear, there is no place for you in my life now or in the future. Therapy is good. I hope you find peace. But your healing journey does not require my participation or forgiveness. I have built a life I love with people who actually value me. That life does not include you. Do not contact me again." I blocked her number before she could respond, then went back to getting my hair styled for my wedding. I felt no guilt, no sadness, no doubt. Just certainty that I was making the right choice. The ceremony was perfect. Aunt Carol walked me down the aisle, crying happy tears. Mark's vows made everyone laugh and cry. We danced under string lights as the sun set over the vineyard. I looked around at the faces of people who genuinely loved me, who celebrated my happiness without expecting anything in return, and I felt complete. Life wasn't perfect after that. There were still hard days, moments when old trauma resurfaced, times when I struggled with trusting people or accepting love. But I had built a support system that caught me when I fell. I had learned that my worth wasn't determined by how useful I was to others. I had discovered that walking away from toxicity wasn't selfish, it was survival. 3 years into my marriage, Mark and I had our first child, a daughter we named Hope. Holding her in the hospital, looking at her perfect tiny face, I made a silent promise. I would never make her earn my love. I would never compare her to siblings or make her feel like she had to prove her worth. I would never use her as a resource or treat her existence as a debt she owed me. I would break the cycle. Aunt Carol visited us in the hospital, bringing flowers and tiny pink onesies. She held Hope gently, tears streaming down her face. "You're going to be an amazing mother," she said. "You already know everything not to do." She was right. I knew exactly what kind of parent I didn't want to be. Now, 5 years after that engagement party confrontation, I'm sitting on my back deck watching Hope play in the garden while I work remotely. Mark is inside making lunch. Justice is asleep in a patch of sunlight. My phone buzzes with a notification from work, something that can wait until tomorrow. I've built this life from the ashes of the one my mother tried to destroy. Every brick in this foundation is something I placed myself. The money in my bank account is mine, untouched by parasitic family members. The success I've achieved is based on my merit, not my willingness to be exploited. The love I receive is freely given, not conditionally offered in exchange for resources. Sometimes I wonder what my mother and Amber are doing. If Amber ever found someone who could overlook her criminal record. If my mother ever really changed, or if her therapy was just another manipulation tactic. But those thoughts are fleeting, idle curiosity with no emotional weight. They made their choices. They chose greed over love, exploitation over relationship, cruelty over kindness, and they're living with the consequences of those choices. I made different choices. I chose self-respect over false peace. I chose boundaries over obligation. I chose people who enhanced my life over people who diminished it. And I'm living with the consequences of those choices too. The difference is my consequences look like joy. Last week I got an email from a young woman who had read about my story online. She wrote, "Your story gave me the courage to cut off my toxic family. I've been supporting them financially for years while they treated me like garbage. I always thought I had to because they're family. But you showed me that sometimes walking away is the only way to survive. Thank you for sharing your experience." I replied to her email, something I don't usually do. I told her that healing wasn't linear, that there would be hard days, that choosing yourself after a lifetime of putting others first felt unnatural at first. But I also told her that on the other side of that decision was a life worth living, filled with people who saw her value. These are the moments that make the pain worth it. Knowing that my refusal to be a victim gave someone else permission to stop being one too. If you're reading this, if you're living with someone who makes you feel worthless unless you're useful to them, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions, finances, or life choices. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You are not selfish for having boundaries. You are not cruel for refusing to be exploited. Family is supposed to be a source of love and support, not a life sentence of obligation and abuse. And if your biological family can't provide that, you have permission to build your own family from people who choose you and cherish you for who you are, not what you can give them. The day I stopped trying to earn love from people incapable of giving it was the day I started actually living. It wasn't easy, it wasn't comfortable, but it was necessary, and it was worth it. So here's my question for you. What's keeping you trapped in a toxic situation? What would it take for you to choose yourself? Have you ever had to cut off someone you loved because they were destroying you? Drop your story in the comments, share this if you know someone who needs to hear it, and hit that like and subscribe button, because sharing these stories, breaking the silence around family dysfunction, that's how we help each other heal. Your life is yours to build. Don't let anyone convince you that you owe them the foundation.